City Council to order, and I would invite you all to rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize that we're starting a few minutes late, but we had a long agenda on the Board of Works meeting, and for those of you that don't know, that was an hour and a half, so we needed a little break there. So thank you for your patience. Phyllis, if we could have roll call.
Kim Cullen.
Here.
Greg Kershaw.
Here.
Matt Donner.
Here.
Tyler Fulenkamp.
Here.
Wiley Sturt.
Here. You were all emailed a copy of our minutes from our April 16th meeting. I would look for a motion to either amend or approve those minutes.
Motion to accept them as emailed.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from April 16th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. First thing up, Connie. Where's Connie? This is a request from the sculpture tour. A couple of requests, I believe.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present about the sculpture tour today.
Connie,
Yes?
may I ask you to sit?
Yes.
Or else move the microphone, because
Okay.
these meetings are all recorded,
Okay.
so that way it'll pick up your voice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and present today. What I wanted to do is talk to you about the Decatur Sculpture Tour. We're going into our 8th year. We started in 2011 at the very tail end of the 175th anniversary of Decatur, and we met for a year before our first gallery in 2012. In 2012, we had 12 exhibits, and those were 8 outdoor and 4 indoor, and most of those were Greg Mendez's friends, as well as Greg Mendez. So we started out with a very small gallery, and in 2019 we anticipate 27 exhibits. 19 will be outdoor, 8 will be indoor, with a total insured value of $206,000. In addition to that, we have 17 permanent exhibits insured for $191,000, for a total of roughly $400,000 in outdoor and indoor exhibits for the city of Decatur and the surrounding area. And obviously it has grown considerably from our first few years whenever we've had our first tour. I think the insured amount for that very first year was barely $20,000. Our exhibits were not anywhere near the quality that they are right now. And we understand that we've grown a lot, not only in the quality of, not only the number of exhibits that we have on display, but also the quality. I don't necessarily have the economic impact that this has had on our city, but I do know if you've ever walked through the city, or you've driven through downtown Decatur, or you've gone downtown on a nice day, anyone who's carrying a brochure you know is here because they're here for the Decatur Sculpture Tour. And again, I don't have any numbers, but I think that what we do find is those people who are coming in from out of town are eating in our restaurants, buying fuel, and they're shopping here. So I don't have a number for you. I don't know for sure if I can, but I do feel that it has made an economic impact. I know in 2014, over 30 community leaders were gathered to support the application process for the Stellar Grant. And this multi-million-dollar grant process, we understand that they had made 2 efforts in order to apply for the Stellar Grant and made it to the finalist category, but didn't quite make it to get the multi-million-dollar grant. But we know that one of the efforts of that Stellar Grant was to increase the art-inspired efforts of our city. And though the grant wasn't received, many of those goals were still met by that group of leaders. Providing inspiration through art was one of the goals, and this is happening with the Decatur Sculpture Tour. We also feel like we've encouraged private investment because, as you might recall, the sculpture Let Freedom Ring. One thing that the Decatur Sculpture Tour Committee, which is 9 volunteers, and we've been working together since 2011, is to increase interest in art. And whenever that group came together, someone outside of our committee put together a fundraiser so that Let Freedom Ring could be a permanent exhibit in Decatur. We were pleasantly surprised because we certainly didn't expect it a fundraiser would crop up, a significant fundraiser, to keep that bronze piece in Decatur, and we're really proud of that. Another impact that we're finding that maybe it should have been on our list of goals is to make Decatur a destination for people who are coming in from outside of Decatur in order to visit our exhibits. And we're very proud to be able to say that many of our out-of-town guests are coming time and time again. We also see that there's a lot of activity in the downtown Decatur, and certainly the Decatur Sculpture Tour can't take credit for that, but we would like to say that we've enhanced the interest in expansion of downtown Decatur through many of the businesses and also the businesses that are currently here, their inclination to invest in themselves and improve their facades and their buildings and the restaurants. I'm hoping that we would be able to continue having the Decatur Sculpture Tour. We're looking to have 27 exhibits in 2019-20 gallery, and those will be up and down 2nd Street, some on 3rd Street, some on Monroe Street. And we'd like to get the feedback from you on what your thoughts are about having an 8th year of the Decatur Sculpture Tour. Do you have any questions?
I think it's a no-brainer personally, but I welcome comments from the council.
It's been a great partnership. I mean, everything you said is true. It's really grown. It's really grown in quality, and we very much appreciate the steadied growth, the smart growth of this. And as a business owner downtown, we see it firsthand, and it's wonderful. So keep it up, please.
We had a tour of Woodcrest residents in here yesterday. The mayor gave a tour. First question in the door was, where's the new sculpture tour brochures? They were ready to see the new crop of sculptures, so it's hitting a wide population here.
Well, in order for us to maintain the quality of artwork that we have coming in, we have a lot of artists. We have artists this year coming in from 9 different states. And one thing I do want to mention is a recent conversation with an artist. When they go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or they go to some of the other galleries, even in the vicinity, the artist said that they intend to make their drops of their exhibits, but they want to end up in Decatur. And in order for us, the reason they want to come to Decatur is because they just like Decatur. They really like the hospitality that our community shows these artists. It makes them feel special. The Decatur Sculpture Tour makes extra efforts in order to make them feel special. When they come in, they have hotel accommodations, meals. We pay them an honorarium because these are professional artists. It would be no different than the professionals that I'm presenting to right now. You wouldn't do it for free. You wouldn't have your entire occupation that you do from day to day and provide that for free. And that's the way the artists are. Their artwork is their profession. And they will take their best work to the city that provides the best income for them. And that's why we have to make sure that we continue to increase our honorarium. Right now, our honorarium, if it's an artist that lives beyond 50 miles outside of Decatur, we provide also a stipend for their mileage. They might get $900 per piece. And that may not seem like much because they're taking their inventory off the market for 10 months while it's here in Decatur. It unveils in June, and they have until mid-April that it needs to stay in Decatur. So what we're going to be asking for, our sponsorships are still the same. We've held that sponsorship dollar amount the same since 2012, but we've added this year titanium sponsorship and the Decatur Sculpture Tour Festival Honor sponsorship, because we just really need to up our honorariums to our artists. As I mentioned, we have several artists coming in from 9 different states. Imagine that we have artists coming in from West Virginia and South Dakota, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, Missouri, and driving their vehicle, pulling a trailer with a piece of artwork the size of Harley. That drags on their fuel. So their mileage is nothing more than sort of a stipend or a show of appreciation. So we're hoping that the city of Decatur will find it within themselves to be able to provide a greater sponsorship this year. You know, we appreciate anything and everything that you can do to help us out. but we're also hoping that you'll find the value in the Decatur Sculpture Tour and what we've provided for the residents, and not just the residents, but the tourists and the families. You know, all of our sculptures are family friendly. We don't do anything that would be considered questionable because everyone on our committee is very conscientious about that. We might have abstracts, but we're finding also that it may not be everyone's favorite, but when the schools are bringing their children through, all the students, they look at a realistic type sculpture and you see a little girl holding flowers, but when you see an abstract, some of the comments that the children make are so far off in a different direction than what you would have imagined that it's entertaining to be a part of those tours with the kids. So it's not just entertaining, it's also very educational. Hopefully you've had a chance to take advantage of taking a tour, and you've attended the unveiling festival, and you found it to be something that you as city representatives are very proud to say it's in your city. Did you have anything you'd like to add?
I've been honored to be able to be part of the committee. You know, John Schultz was part of the initial, and then I was invited when I came on as mayor. So I've been involved with the unveiling and the Thursday night reception, and giving some tours actually to school kids and whatever. So it is really interesting, and hardly a day goes by if you're not watching outside that you don't see someone that you can just tell they're from out of town, walking around that downtown area. Do you recall what we gave last year? I know that part of our sponsorship has been in-kind services.
Absolutely. We are so pleased with the cooperation we get from the police department as well as the city of Decatur. We couldn't ask for a greater relationship because they just show up and they help with the installation and the takedown and the relocation of those concrete bases. And so we're very, very fortunate to have that.
Yep.
And the financial sponsorship last year was $1,500.
$1,500.
And that came out of where?
Common Council.
Wasn't it council? And this year you're going to have to deal with the city a little too, as there's plans to redo all this out front. So that should be
that came up
interesting.
in our meeting, and we have intentions of putting the majority of the sculptures on the west side of 2nd Street, except during the new concrete down by the foundation, that probably won't be torn up. So we're suspecting that will be safe, and then perhaps up here by City Hall.
So ultimately, at some point in time this summer, between Monroe Street and Madison Street, both sides will get new sidewalks and streetscaping. It may be...
We talked about it with the committee, and we all agreed for some flexibility, and we move forward.
Yep. So Phyllis, House Council's budget, they haven't spent too much through 5 months, have they, or through 4 months?
No, not on the promotional.
Out of promotional? Let Phyllis get her budget.
Promotional activities is $20,000.
Do you know what it was the year before, by any chance? Did we up it any?
I know you did.
Yeah, we upped it.
You definitely did. Might I add, I know you're hit up quite a bit for people to support their activities. And I support all of that. I think that everything that's going on downtown has been just, it's been enlightening to see so many volunteers put their time into all the festivals and the activities that are going on downtown. I support all of those. Of course, the Community Foundation supports all those as well. The Decatur Sculpture Tour, a little bit of the difference between the festivals that we mentioned and the Decatur Sculpture Tour is it's a 10-month tour. So it begins in June and it doesn't really conclude until the middle of April. So when we find that the sponsorship level is something hopefully that you'll find you are interested in doing, it's not for one night or for one weekend, but rather for 10 months. So we do find that that money is really put to good, I hope you feel it's being put to good use. Because we're not just bringing people in for a day or for an hour or for a weekend, but rather for over the course of several weekends and a couple of months.
Okay, based on the fact that we've raised our promotional budget purposefully.
She's not asking for anything.
I'm grateful for whatever you guys can do. I truly am.
You said you have 2 new levels. What are those levels at?
Titanium sponsorship is $5,000 and Decatur's Festival Honor sponsorship is $10,000.
I think what you've done in past years, as I look at this, last year as a platinum, you had the city of Decatur listed there, and I think that's because of not only our monetary donation, but because of the in-kind service you elevated our status.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can't put a dollar amount on that.
Right.
I think that's good.
That help from the city is great, and the police department.
Yep. And Jeremy's guys on setup day and takedown day.
Absolutely.
I suggest $2,000 we consider.
Discussion, come on. What were you going to say? You started to say something.
And I was going to up it even a little more to 2,500 was my thought, just because we increased that budget. And I see the amount of people being brought to Decatur specifically for this.
So I have 2 suggestions, one of 2,000, one of 2,500.
I'll make a second to Matt's. I mean, it does bring a lot of people downtown, and they come all year round. So, and
Thank you.
We bumped up our promotional to promote the city. I think we were going to do some advertising, try to advertise the city. I don't think we ever really got that rolling.
Yeah, we had some money for marketing, which we used some of that for handing out, but yeah. I appreciate your motion and second, and yours too, Wiley. While I don't have a vote in this, I do support the 2,500. I think it's a money well spent.
But I also really appreciate the sculpture tour. Year after year goes out to the community, not just looking for the city to fund this. They really do hit many individuals, as you can see, to make this happen. So.
Yep.
And to paraphrase a noted community leader, I would challenge anyone who suggests that this growth and popularity of the recent years is simply coincidence. To me, what is happening is exactly what we had hoped for, revitalization and private investment because of public initiative and dedicated volunteers and municipal partners. And I really do think that that's true, and I appreciate that community leader making that notation.
We have a motion on the floor for 2,500 and a second. Any other discussion before we vote? If not, all in favor? Aye. And opposed? Thank you, Connie.
Thank you all very much.
Also, while you're here, I see that we have an event form. The event form, just kind of briefly go over it. It's for Friday, June 14th for the unveiling tour, the food vendors, and the plein air art paint-out competition. While the setup is going on that whole day, the plein air art competition is going on throughout the downtown area. They've got down here for the location to be 2nd Street and Madison Street, downtown Decatur. Expected attendees were around 1,200 people. They'll have food vendors on Madison Street between 2nd and 3rd Street. They've requested for additional trash cans, etc. Of course, the restrooms on the plaza. It's been signed off by Jeremy, Les, and Lenny. They've got attached here the street closings that they'll need. So everything's in order as far as their request for the event form. So I would look for a motion to approve their event form.
So moved.
Second. I have 2 motions and 1 second. You got all that, Barb? I don't know where you're going to tag them, but all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda, about 3 months ago, there were a few people that came to our meeting. Well, actually, I received a letter from Scott Ainsworth, I guess is how it all started, representing North Adams Community Schools with an offer for our community to accept a donation of Northwest Elementary. And they kind of gave us 90 days to think about that. Well, 90 days will be May 13th. So tonight we have it on the agenda to formally discuss and make a decision on Northwest Elementary School. I've toured the building a couple of times, and I know several of the others have been over and taken a good look at it. Some of the department heads, Kurt, Jeremy, Don, they've all been in there and looked at it, I think Les, and the building is in excellent shape. The roof's in good shape, the HVAC is all good. As for an asset, this building is good to go. And as far as uses for that building, I know that, and I see a couple of members of the, well, Wiley and Craig, along with Superintendent Lehman, James Teeple, and help me out here about Keith Gerber, Lori Mervos. Is there anyone else? They've been doing a lot of legwork as far as finding other further, what's the word, educational facilities to locate within that building. And I know that Vincennes University is very interested. I know they've talked to the Ivy Techs and the various others that can do education. Yeah, workforce development. Thank you. Tyler this evening in our Board of Works meeting was talking about the trades and how right now, you know, anyone wanting to get into the trades, we just opened bids for our Hannah Nutman concession stands and restrooms, and they were higher than what the proposed estimate was going to be. So once again, a good economy and people in the trades have got it going right now. So this would serve as a fantastic location for that. While nothing tonight can be decided that that's for certain what's going to happen there, I think we would have some backup plans. I think that, you know, Jeremy sitting back there with also being in charge of the Park and Rec Department, he would be able to come up with some uses if it doesn't turn into a learning center. So, having said all that, any discussion among council members?
Well, I think this discussion all started with the concept of it being a career center, learning center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we're going to take this on, we need to do all that's in our power to help that happen. It cannot be a City of Decatur initiative. And I think it's we're going to have to work diligently with, you know, the county, I think multiple counties, honestly, but our Economic Development Corporation. I see them being the leader, the key partner, and we need to just help initiate that conversation.
Correct. Yes.
But the opportunity's now.
Right. Right.
Make a motion that we accept the property from North Adams Community Schools, Northwest School.
Northwest Community School, Northwest Elementary School.
Northwest Elementary School.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second for us to accept the Northwest Elementary School from North Adams Community Schools. Before we vote, any other discussion?
Yeah, just because I know he's here and I don't want to put him on the spot, but James Teeple is actually really, through Economic Development Corporation, the key person behind workforce development, and I would appreciate your thoughts on why this is so important to our economy.
Thank you, James, for being willing to share.
Thanks for inviting. Again, we've had a lot of discussion, but I think everybody knows the sudden resurgence of manufacturing, and of course, as they draw workers, skilled or unskilled, they're just looking for people at this point in juncture. Of course, that's putting the backfill in a lot of other business sectors. But it demonstrates a huge need for developing those skills. We've got people. Our challenge is going to be retaining that workforce attracting a new workforce. So there's a lot of initiatives we discussed and a lot of utilization that could be had from this type of facility. About 2.5 years ago, we had the initial discussion I did with the Adams Wells Manufacturing Alliance, and again, we were in conversation with Vincennes University, and had conversations with Ivy Tech as well too. But the discussion was we really need to have educational services in the area for the county. If we're going to retain a workforce, if we're going to have to develop our own. But it always came down to where. So brick and mortar was always top of discussion. Where can we offer these services? Because that was going to be a critical step in the juncture for any institution to offer those services out of the area. So with that, I think this initiative, we've talked to other potential service providers in regards to, I mentioned two of the two-year schools, but also had some initial conversation with Indiana Tech. We're going to approach other service providers if in fact this comes to fruition. And we've had initial conversation with Work One so they can expand their services. They have greater space to work from. So there's a lot of leasing opportunities that we've got to have these service providers educate, because there's a lot of our residents currently that's getting their education in Fort Wayne or surrounding areas. If they can educate here, they're more likely to work here, stay here. So that's really what we're saying as far as the retention part of it, but then there's that attraction factor as well too. So if we can provide the services here, we can attract from surrounding areas too, so this can be more of a regional concept. So there's a lot of great opportunity here, and like I say, the key aspect for businesses and economic development is, at the top of their checklist is workforce. Do we have the workforce? Do we have the skills, the skilled workforce that they need? Whether they decide to relocate or expand, it's always top of discussion. So this is, as Cam mentioned, this is a great opportunity, and I hope we can we've got a lot of groundwork laid for next steps that just kind of hinges on the vote this evening. So I appreciate
I'd like to thank that steering committee for all the work you've done. I know you've made a lot of visits, in-state, out-of-state, some of them not so, very close, pretty far away. And I know that we'll lean on you as we move forward with this as well in our efforts to come up with that plan. And I appreciate two of the council members, without being appointed to serve on that committee from the city, just stepped up and have been a big part of it. So I appreciate Craig and Wiley.
Thank you.
So yeah, there's one other initiative that is going to be key here too. The first part of this is just going to, let's say, address the immediate need in skills development and workforce development. But there's also filling that proverbial pipeline of high school students. We've got to start capturing students that are graduating here locally and giving them educational, post-secondary educational opportunities here in the area as well too. So it's not everybody's going to go to a four-year institution, and this also helps us fill that pipeline for future needs.
Like I said, like Tyler said tonight in our meeting, there's plenty of need out there for plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and all kinds of trades.
Exactly. Apprenticeship programs, early college CTE programs, those are all things that we have discussed with Vincennes, and if we can get them as an anchor tenant, I think we can get a lot of the other service providers to provide and fill those other niches that Vincennes won't.
Superintendent, do you have anything else to add? I'd welcome your comments if you have anything.
James has spoken well, and I appreciate the consideration of everybody. I'm glad we have a building to offer, and I think the opportunities for economic impact for a pretty wide area is beyond what I think we might even can envision right now. So, time to keep moving forward.
Either of you two have any comments?
No, nothing more. They've said exactly what
Needs to be said.
what it's about.
Tim, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add and piggyback off of what Brent just shared. If you look back at when we applied for stellar community status, one of the criteria that was used to judge an application was what was the regional impact. I think this is a significant regional impact, not just to our community, but in surrounding counties. And if this had been offered back 5 years ago or 6 years ago when we were pursuing Stellar, that may have been...
Are you suggesting we pursue Stellar again?
No. Suggesting that, but I am saying that if you look at the...
I'm running short on time.
If you look at those that were recipients of the award, they had this type of a project as their keystone project.
Yeah.
So we've chosen to proceed without relying on Stellar grants. I think we've been pretty successful. I think we can do it again here.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I have a motion and a second to accept the school. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Superintendent. Tim, you're on the school board. Thank you. Next on the agenda is to discuss 2nd Street between Monroe Street and Madison Street with streetscaping, and here to represent Decatur Main Street is Tony Murray, I believe is the spokesperson. And Sandy Collier and Max Miller are also here, and Melissa from the Design Committee. Holy cow, what do you got there? We don't have the rest of the night to read all this.
You
wanted information, you got the information.
Okay, give us just a minute here, Tony. Before we start, let us just kind of peruse through this.
Yep. Why don't you guys come up here at least, you two, since we've all done kind of bits and pieces of it.
I'll give you the cliff notes real quick. This is the Decatur Main Street Design Committee has been tasked with creating the design for the streetscape along 2nd Street in the downtown area. The urgency of this was brought to us as the 2nd Street Loft was doing construction out on the sidewalk. It was the hope that we could replace with new instead of old. The timeline for that we're not sure about, but the committee has done some really, really good work and a lot of legwork and looking at what other communities around Northeast Indiana are doing, and they have a great proposal with some great evidence to share with you today. The first page, kind of go through your packet, is the recommendation. The second page, their little map is kind of a draft drawing of what we're proposing for the downtown area. The third page is an important page. The committee has reached out to talk to Roanoke. Roanoke has recently removed and replaced their trees and kind of the rhyme or reason for that, and Sandy can speak to that in a little bit. We've reached out to the Main Street Board. We've talked to some downtown business owners. We've talked to the city of Bern.
Fort Wayne. There's some information there as well as some photographs. Also a reminder that this was a discussion as the city worked through its downtown plan that was created back in 2015. Street trees and streetscapes and all that good stuff was part of that original downtown plan. And then the last couple of things in your packet are specifically concerning trees, everything from how they should be planted to the economic impact that is realized when street trees and greenery are a part of your downtown, and the civic and the economic development that it promotes.
So what you have in front of you is our recommendation of what we would like to see between Madison and Monroe to start off the first block of the blocks between Jackson and Adams Street in the future. The map shows 6 new light poles based on a recommendation from Jeremy and what we have as far as coverage for those existing lights that would match what we already have started throughout town on First Street, Second Street, and First Street, Monroe Street. The green areas denote where we propose to put trees with street grates or tree grates included with a 2-foot paver band offset from the curb about 4 to 6 inches, however they form it up, to run the length of the street. We are also proposing a bump out at the alleyway, assuming that the alley would become a pedestrian alleyway. If not, that bump out would go away. We would have to relocate the one tree a little bit. Do you guys have any questions for us? We don't have benches and trash cans in this plan yet. Trash cans will probably come as this portion of it, as this portion kind of wraps up. Benches we had discussed as far as budget concerns or how much money we have available, because those are a couple things that could be pushed towards the end of a project in like a 5th year, to kind of do that stuff all along the project.
There's photos from Fort Wayne.
Yes, those are photos that I took around Summit Square. They just redid one Summit Square last year and put all those new trees and pavers and everything in. Very similar to what we are proposing with the 2-foot band and a 4-foot grate.
Do you know that, I'm asking, like in Roanoke, they're replacing, now I noticed that they said they had a Bradford pear and it got too big and had berries and had attracted birds, okay, and they're replacing them using the same type of tree we have on the plaza, I believe is what it says. But do most municipalities plant the trees assuming that the tree is there forever, or do they have a time period to where you come in, you remove the tree and put a new one in after so long so that the root system can't take over and cause any problems? Sandy's shaking her head.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I asked Roanoke that question today, and she said that they had planted their first trees in '95, and they tore them out because, as she said, they were just a messy tree. They made a poor choice in their tree selection, she said. So they now have 4 different varieties of trees that they plant in their city. But I asked her about roots getting into the buildings nearby, and she said it's never been an issue for them, and that if you take the trees out after,
15 years or so.
15 or 20 years, then that's not an issue that you have to face.
There's also a spot in there too, with the intention of having a maintenance program for it, that it was, Roanoke does hire a company that comes in once a year to prune the trees, and they have trees every 25 feet on their streets, and their total bill for that is only $1,100. So we're only talking about 4 trees, possibly 8 if we can stretch it, but the cost for maintenance, I mean, if we do this, we have to have a plan for maintenance. It can't be something that you stick in and it's good for 15 years and we just leave it alone. There's got to be some type of a maintenance plan, and if it is something like this, I don't believe it will be very costly.
The pruning is also going to take care of one of the questions that people have been concerned with is, if a box truck pulls up along the curb, are they going to, hit the tree, break the branches, and so forth. And when I talked to Roanoke about that today, they said as long as you keep it pruned, that should not be an issue.
And I appreciate the survey that you did of the downtown merchants, and it looks like all this one page is all within this block, and then the second page has one from down a little ways, and they have some concerns on, I guess while we're only taking the consideration between Monroe and Madison, we really need to consider from Jackson to Five Points, long-term.
These 4 to 8 trees that we're talking about now would give you an opportunity to see how well it would work and to see how popular it is before you filled in with any more.
Yep. And Melissa and I had a real nice conversation with Mayor McKean. You can see his comments on here from down in Bern. They just recently removed theirs, his concerns. One of the big things, he said, the downtown merchants, they liked them when they first put them in, and they all complained later because the leaves always blew right up into their little alcove for their business. And he said the same thing. He goes, if you put a tree in, and when you do it, if you plan on replacing that tree after so many years, if that's in your long-term plan, he goes, then it shouldn't be a problem. But they didn't do that, and
it created a mess.
It created a mess, and they decided just to take them out.
There's some sort of discussion about a concrete box that the tree's planted in.
Now, that we were talking about burying. I spoke with Meyer, who takes care of the maintenance for Rona, and he said they can work, but they need to be put in professionally, or you need to do it the right way, because if you don't, they can end up creating a bigger problem themselves by forcing roots in the direction you don't want them to go. So it is possible that it needs to be done with care.
At an extra cost.
Right. On the plaza,
We didn't do that.
Into the ground.
Yeah, I find it kind of interesting that we really didn't question trees when it came to the plaza.
He's a master arborist with,
Well, I think part of that is it's a more open area. It's not,
he's a master arborist
Right.
with,
it's more of a park area, kind of, whereas this we're
But I think our
talking about
biggest
right in
concern
front
with trees has been roots more than anything, I
right in
think.
front of businesses.
What could turn into foundation problems.
Mhm.
If not, again, Tony hit it. The key is you don't just plant them and forget it. You're going to come in 7 years or 12 years or whatever.
Who
and replace
will
it.
be responsible for that? Is that going to be the Parks Department responsible for that type of
Whether it's the
future
parks or the
planning?
street department, regardless, it's the same person.
Yeah, I know.
Or a local contractor, or keep getting into these deeper projects. Because that's what a lot of your other communities are getting into, like Angel One, some of those, they're actually hiring companies to come in and take care of a lot of that stuff.
and with the gentleman that they spoke with in Roanoke, he does this for Roanoke, he's a master arborist, is that the right term? And it appears at an affordable cost that,
He operates southern Michigan, northwest Ohio, and Indiana. He does do a lot of that.
Okay, all of our discussion thus far has been about trees. What about everything else that they're proposing? I guess it's, with the concrete sidewalk with a
I think
a
we
2-foot wide band of charcoal-colored pavers along the sidewalk edge. There'd be the charcoal-colored paver that matches what's on the plaza. Removing the green light poles that are currently in place and placing 6 new black light poles to match the ones on Monroe and First Streets.
Are
And the
those
trees and the bump out, the additional bump out. Go ahead, Matt.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but there was some concern about the brightness of the lights on Monroe. Is this the same on this, or can they be brighter? Do we want them brighter?
Chairman?
I think we want that continued look.
The lights,
Certainly.
the brightness of the lights that have been recently installed on First Street, are those, can you get brighter?
They're the same luminance that we have on that.
Have we had complaints that it's too
If you want
dark?
that coverage, you would have to increase the number of light poles.
Right.
Yeah, I did that. And basically what we did, kind of playing with that, we didn't do the photometric study on this stretch at this point, but I did order a few extra poles. And the poles will actually be in tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So I can just have on what side is
study.
study before we start this project. We want 10 poles for our project, which I think was a few extra.
Are they as bright as what we currently have?
They're saying,
They're all the same.
Okay.
It's the same
are,
thing that we-
along Monroe or First Street, have we had any comments that it's too dark?
Monroe has been.
Monroe Street is
Yeah.
too dark?
I think what people are comparing it to, though, is they go to the bridge and they see it bright with the big ones that the state put in, and then the others are more ornamental.
Like Kevin McCory explained on his lights whenever we start talking about the plaza, this style light is a daylight, or a daylighter, if you will. It's more of an
Aesthetic.
light or an accent light. It's not made to be this big bright light. It's kind of not what the purpose is for these little shorter, more decorative lights. If you want something real bright, then you got to stick with your regular poles that have the big LED light in it, or just put out a whole lot more wattage and light than what you're doing. So the key is if you don't like the darkness,
More of them.
you tighten up that spacing on your lights.
And we had 6, 3 on each side, I assume, is what.
So you average, when we did the photometric study for Monroe Street, you were averaging 75 feet to 100 feet is what the photometric study recommended.
And these will be closer than that.
Okay.
These are closer together than the ones on Monroe. They're a little tighter, spacing-wise.
And the other thing on here is that if we go with trees, tree grades, I think we definitely would want steel or iron, not plastic.
And this is one of those things the committee did their homework on.
The
just to
plastic
check.
was suggested as an alternative to being, first it was cost, and second was, getting into the whole maintenance thing again. Because if we've got our college intern for the summer, one person can pick one of those grates up, clean out underneath it, and put, you're not spending full price to get that work done. But when I contacted the company, they are designed only for pedestrian traffic. So the equipment that we would have possibly on the sidewalk.
Equipment we do have on the sidewalk, cleaning snow, would recommend.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
So as soon as we learn that, that's not an option. We went back to the.
Okay.
Did I see here too that Roanoke has some?
Yes. They did not opt to put grates back in this time because she said the trees had outgrown them, and just for saving money this time they just added mulch. And he said, we could make you a good deal on grates.
Kevin, you had a comment?
There is a water main that goes down the sidewalk, the west side of Second Street. It's about 4 feet deep, so I don't know how big these trees go. Once that was in or out. I don't know what the plan is. Want to make sure you're aware of that too.
And how deep would that water main be? How deep is the water main?
About 4 feet.
What is the main made of? I would...
Is it plastic or is it old tile? I mean, water.
Not the water, iron.
I mean, tree root wouldn't get into it.
I could, but I don't know how deep, moss in the tree or,
Don, you have a comment?
make sure you're aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, as your infrastructure manager, tree roots and storm draining, sanitary drainings and our water mains are not a good idea. You ever had to bear hug or root ball out of a sewer system, you never plant a tree. We spent, I think it was close to $15,000 to clear trees off their sanitary sewer system across the woods along the river here just because it got into it so bad, it was plugging everything out.
You're talking in the woods,
Yeah, you are, but this tree's
with
gonna do-
full mature trees.
Trees have roots.
Tore hundreds of grates out because of that same reason. Just not a good idea, is all I'm saying. I understand it looks neat, pretty, but we don't have the width for it, we got too many utilities in that
Any other comments from department heads back there?
Unless you have concern with fire.
What's that, Jeremy?
I asked Les if he had concern with like fire and stuff. No, just with, restriction.
Depends on how, laddering, something else to maneuver on.
How big will the trees that are on the plaza, that particular type, how big will they get? Do we know?
We could get a 60-foot tall or be.
60 feet tall?
The idea was that when those grow mature, they will begin to form a canopy with each other, so 6 at each end. So those will be fine.
Do we know how big a girth of the trunk to get?
60 foot,
If you're going to let them grow that tall.
Right. And I would hope that what we put on the plaza, we're going to maintain.
They get 50 to 80 feet wide.
And again, that's, if you
That's
don't
at full maturity.
do anything
Yeah,
to them.
yeah, full maturity. Actually, 50 to 80 feet.
Which is, I mean, this brings up, something that we need to consider for the plaza itself. Do we want to have a time period for those trees?
Sure.
Is the plan to put these bump outs at every alley down the street? Or is it just this one? The reason I asked is, like, when we first put in the plaza down here, it was like a mess of people where it bumped out, like, no one knew where to drive. I don't know why. I mean, it's a parking spot, but are we planning on doing this all the way down? Does that feel like it's going to shrink, or... Because is this alley, this one that was supposed to be closed on the...
Supposed to have been.
No, east side.
Yeah.
I think this is the one we're looking at right now because it connects to parking lots. You can walk in either direction, parking lot, pedestrian alley into the downtown area. Now, there was nothing else that was pegged for pedestrian
No.
walkways. None of the other alleys were.
There's only one other alley, isn't there? That goes to Second, that's on the north side.
By the Decatur Democrat.
Yeah.
Two others.
And they're going that way too, yeah.
And we're talking more aesthetics here, but secondarily, in the comments from business owners, the concern about everybody has is how long? Like,
Right.
how long will they be working in front of business to business? I mean, are we talking a few days, weeks?
If the
It
sun
went-
shines, it probably
It
wouldn't
seemed
take
to
that long.
go quickly
If we
along
get a
Monroe
week and a half of
Street.
rain, then the timeline's going to stretch.
Yeah, Jeremy and I have talked about it. He says, it's not like the plaza where each brick is getting cut because they're making designs, whatever. This is a straight shot, 2 feet wide. As far as the pavers go, that would go real quick. And concrete's concrete. You got to pour the concrete.
When will Hitchcock did these businesses down here use aluminum planks?
I'm sorry, what?
You could get on the road.
Figure it is, the weather's 80, probably for 5 weeks,
Per day.
start to finish.
Comments over here?
I'm all for the plaza, I don't like the trees. Burns just cut them all out this last weekend. Talked to my in-laws there, they live there, and he said, I wouldn't go with them with birds and all the mess, leaves blowing around in the wintertime.
Could I share with you a comment that the city operations officer made from Roanoke? When I talked to him, he said that when they first started talking about putting trees back in the city, he said, I was dead set against it. He said, I was one of the larger naysayers to it. But he said, now that they're in, I have completely turned my thinking around. And he said, I think they're wonderful. Wonderful.
They're very pretty.
My concern with the trees, and it's a little bit different than Craig's is, and we have these pictures here from Fort Wayne, is the size of our sidewalks. I mean, these sidewalks are twice as wide as the sidewalks that we have in front of our businesses, and we're going to cut a pathway for someone to walk. I know we're not allowed to ride bicycles on our sidewalks, but people do ride bicycles on their sidewalks. We're going to take that space and we're going to shrink it down 2 foot. And with the town growing, downtown foot traffic growing, do we want to shrink our space down for walking space?
We should not have light poles either. Well, the light poles, you need light. I mean, that,
Some of the sculpture bases I would equate to the size of what a tree is. And how busy do you want the sidewalk to be? How much stuff?
and I think we've already determined the sculptures or something we value here, so this, trees do add another dimension,
Again, this is
another,
4 in a block.
yeah.
And honestly, if we're encouraging people to walk up and down the street to look at the sculptures, then we ought to do our best to make the street inviting and relaxing, a place that they want to spend some time walking.
That's part of it with the parking, you know, people say there's nowhere to park. I mean, but if you have a nice place to walk, that's all within walkability of downtown. It's a nice place to park, a walk. Like she just said, people don't mind walking, well, they got a pretty way to walk. But it's just the sidewalk is kind of boring.
How big is that?
Walkability.
How big is our concern on that water main? That's the one thing I've heard, I guess, on the other side of the street is. Tony, you got any?
Depending on the exact location of it. Yeah, the trees, rather not have it right on top of the water. Do you ever have, yeah. If there's ever an issue with one thing too, you have to dig it all up. But I guess that's anyway.
But you're saying that water main's in the middle of the sidewalk or closer to the building?
It's pretty close to the middle of the sidewalk.
And the proposed picture put the tree to the toward the street part of the sidewalk.
Would you say about 3 feet off the street?
That was,
Is that band in Fort Wayne of pavers, is that 2 feet?
about, yeah.
Okay.
Is it any concern if it's all off the road, then it's causing issues in trees?
If you pick the right tree, there are salt tolerant trees. But if you make the wrong choice, then yes, salt's an issue, but, the ones we've talked to the arborist about are engineered to be salt tolerant.
We're getting a lot of comments both ways here, folks.
Did you decide on the tree then, or you just left that up in the air still? Or?
Tyler asked if we have decided on the tree. There's been a lot of homework on trees.
Yeah. I've had recommendations from Heller's Nursery, from Fort Wayne Trees, and from the arborist, John Meyer. And right now we're looking at the European hornbeam. And there's a picture on the back of the page, I think. And primarily because it is one that is very salt tolerant, and it is pyramidal in shape, so that it's not going to be a full tree that would cause problems, taking up more space than necessary.
What page is it on?
I think it's a
On
lot of-
this one,
Yes, that one.
Okay. Okay.
European hornbeam.
It's a native tree, which is another consideration.
To what?
It's a native tree, it's not something that was created in Japan and brought over here.
Do we know the cost of one of those, or?
I got costs on some of our other ones, and they were all about, $149. Yeah, $150, and then, delivery fee, $1.
My only question is, are we committed to closing the alley? I mean, if we're not, if the alley is not a walkway, or do you still want the bump out? Is that...
Ultimately, I think this council voted to close that alley and make it a pedestrian alley. However, we had some issues with the condition of the alley and the what do you call them? The bollards. The base of one of the bollards broke. So, until we can put attention to the paving in that alley, I don't think we can permanently close it. But it was decided to close that alley.
Way back when, in 2015, the Winning with Wellness crew, they got a grant from the state of Indiana for a consultant to come in and do an active living plan to see what are the things we can do in the community that promotes walkability, promotes pedestrian safety, and doing those bump outs in different locations was one of the top things, one of the top recommendations of making pedestrian safety a little better. So it didn't just come out of thin air that we came up with that. That was a recommendation from another local group.
What does the bump out do? Is it slow? It's supposed to
Slow you down.
slow you down?
It gives the pedestrian a little more safe haven to get out
To look for cover.
before they have to cross the street, instead of trying to look over cars to see if there's something coming.
And it gives them a center walkway to cross on rather than just, zipping across the street wherever you are. You either have the ends or you have the center.
It's more visible for traffic count too, on the middle one
There would be a crosswalk painted.
I think when we talked to NDOT on 27, they talked about trying to direct the flow of pedestrian traffic, and they used these as a way to do that.
Theoretically, you could say if you do close it, the bump outs would lose 2 parking spaces, because you could make the alley entrance a parking space, one on either side of the street, but you're not really losing anything. There's not parking there now, so we're not taking parking spaces away to create those there.
Personally, I'm not scared of 4 trees as long as we're committed to maintenance. And we haven't had trees out there, so I don't know if that's in 5 years you tear the tree out or in 15 years you tear the tree out, but you don't just plant it and forget it. That's when you have problems. I think aesthetically it looks nice. Fort Wayne looks great. Roanoke looks very nice. Angola looks very nice. They've all incorporated that element.
The ones here that you can kind of see pipe and slice in the background, just in guessing and looking at where you could see the trees have been pruned, those at that size are a few years old. You can see, especially this larger one, you can see several areas where they've pruned those trees. So those aren't just new plants from last year like some of the other pictures from the Summit Square. Those have been there for 4 or 5 years there already.
I'll tell you, they've been there at least for 10, because they were there when we walked the street all the time. So they've been there as long as I was going.
Which one's the one on Summit Square?
No, right here on, this is,
That one, okay.
well, yeah, it'd be
That's
Calhoun,
Yeah.
and down,
To be honest, I can't tell you when they were put in, and I've worked downtown for
yeah.
15 years, and I walk that all the time, but I just started paying attention to them.
Yeah. But I just know that they've been there at least 10, I would say, well, since 2010, so.
And it is, I mean, they do give you some relief, from sun beating down on pavement and concrete in the middle of July.
Studies have been made in which it's been determined that traffic, cars, autos will slow down when they enter a street that has trees on it. Just an automatic response. So therefore, it increases your safety factor in the area.
Do you know what kind of trees those are?
I just made contact with the guy yesterday and early this morning. I can get that information. I don't know if it was in the meeting.
And one other concern was down the way, but it was there used to be vents in the sidewalks, and now they closed them off. And he perceives basement problems due to no vents. I don't know anything about vents in sidewalks.
Yeah, I know, like over on the other side of the street, like in front of the old Fifth Third, is that a drain, or is that...
Drain.
That's a drain, okay. So I don't know what he's talking about when it comes to a vent either.
It was in the email that Scott sent me.
Well, council, it's,
We've
Not
talked
getting any-
a lot, and is this something you want to sit on? Is this something you want to decide this evening? We know that because of what's going on in some of the lofts and the lead time for some of the materials that Jeremy needs to order, that a decision needs to be made yesterday.
yeah.
That tree is a honey locust. Growing trees in urban environments present, this is from
The Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, a guy in Fort Wayne that takes care of these trees. Growing trees in urban environments presents many challenges: limited soil volume, limited availability of water, high road salt exposure. As a result, their palette of trees they use is very limited. Honey locust has proven to be relatively tolerant to all of those challenges. Except you have to be careful whether it's male or female, because they produce these really large pods. And I know at Purdue Fort Wayne, the stretch that goes past the library, these pods in the fall are a mess on the sidewalk. Not all honey locusts do that, but some do.
Ginkgo was another tree that was recommended by Tom Meyer. But again, just like you're saying, there's a male and a female, and one of them has an exposure odor to it. So you want to make sure you get the right.
Council, what do you want to do this evening? Jeremy, when do you need to have some decisions? Like Melissa said, was it yesterday, or... I know you've been, yeah.
Now, you know, it really doesn't matter if you guys aren't ready, you're not ready.
It's just every time we put this off, it's delaying Jeremy another month. And Jeremy,
I really don't know what your expectations are, you know, for completion. You know, if you're not sure and you don't really have a completion date in mind, not a big issue. If you do have a completion date in mind, which is sooner than later, you probably ought to...
my biggest concern, as far as being sooner than later, is the condition of our sidewalk out here. With what work we've already done, we've done some patchwork, but there's gravel areas, and it's, especially on this east side here, it's not good.
So I think that, you know, you go back from really when redesign of downtown was initially started, 2014, 2015, all these discussions. I appreciate you put the history in here of it. Main Street came along, we've asked for Main Street's input, they've voted an agreement to support trees, we've asked them to design it. So really what's at hand is, are we willing to accept the design that they put forth in front of us? The recommendation that we've asked them to give and the homework that they've done. So if we have any other questions, I would say now is the time to ask the questions. But we asked them to do a design. This is their design that they're presenting. So, I mean, that's really what that... Do we accept? Are we saying, yes, let's proceed with this design?
So with that, I mean, are we looking for a vote as to, I mean, a roll call vote as to whether to accept or not accept, or do you want to have somebody make a motion to accept it with a second and then take a vote and see how it goes, or?
I think so. I'm willing to make a motion to accept the design committee's suggestion for that block. And it is pared down from some of the initial drawings when we all said that looks like too many trees. So now it's pared down to 4 trees in that block. And just with that motion, I want to, if this passes, to put in place that maintenance for whoever's sitting here along that corridor and Madison Street where we just put trees. We don't want it overgrown.
So your motion is to accept their proposal. Now, their proposal does not say what type of tree, but we would allow them to decide that if that's
Oh,
accepted.
and are we within budget? Jeremy?
What's the number?
Are we within budget with this?
I never saw a design.
I don't think
I don't really know.
We were basing it off the numbers that he gave us.
that Jeremy gave us, yeah, which is what the redevelopment commission and everybody was looking at. I mean, with or without trees, the trees don't make that big of a cost adjustment for 4 trees. It's not the trees, it's the concrete, the pavers is the biggest expense.
The number that we had, we were initially working off of was 217,000, which that included a 4-foot band of pavers. We dropped that to a 2-foot band, which reduced it by 40,000. And it had 10 poles in here, which you said you did purchase, but we're only calling for 6, which those are $4,500 a piece. So that would be, well under the original amount. That I don't have the exact number of.
So I think that
That's
the
another
answer to
thing.
Wiley's question, yes, it's within the budget.
Yes.
Well, but another thing, do we
With the
want
numbers that we have here.
Jeremy to look at the amount of lights? Are we concerned about?
I think he needs to do that study that he was
Right,
talking about.
yeah, okay.
Well, the study is, I think the study has been done, hasn't it, Jeremy?
What's that?
Wasn't the study done for most Monroe Street for the distance between the lines?
You can probably use,
This-
the study that was done on Monroe Street met NDOT's requirements.
But you talked about reviewing that for out here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I meant.
So that NDOT's requirements doesn't meet our downtown merchants
Yeah,
requirements.
That's the minimum. If we want it brighter, then we're probably going to have to add a
I think
pole
you're
or two.
getting, I mean, this is a whole other issue, but I think you're getting into a sticky situation with as much housing is going downtown that you start brightening it up like a spaceship downtown and there's people living there.
Well, yeah, I don't, yeah.
But if we,
I
they're proposing 6 lights, how many do we have in the stretch now?
You're right.
I mean,
It's the
Right.
black dot on your map.
No,
For the
you mean
existing.
Existing lights. So there's 4 now.
Yeah, but they're different
proposing-
type of light, totally different kind of light.
They're proposing 6, so I think it is going to leave it bright enough. I mean,
But I
it's all
think
going in
that's-
conduit, Jeremy?
That's something Jeremy can
right.
determine.
Yeah, it would be,
It is.
before the concrete gets laid, yeah.
And then they could always have.
You could always add more if you
Right. you could always-
Except for that they wouldn't be, looking at the diagram, at the end of 2nd and Madison, okay, at Monroe Street, right in front of City Hall in the corner, we have a light. At the other corner, we don't have a light. How close is the closest light on Madison Street Plaza to the intersection? Is that intersection going to be?
Aren't there 2 each end of each side of the plaza that face Second?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
I think I should have a picture over here, no?
Yeah, there are 2, they wrap around that,
And they face Second.
yeah.
They're $400 or $500 a tree. I say we do this street, or along with that. If it don't work, tear the trees out, put the pavers in, move on. I mean, there's 4 of them there. I don't think it's going to make that big of an impact.
We'll take 8 if you want.
I say we stick with 4. And I would just be cautious that Jeremy maybe do this. I said this at the previous meeting, but we stick to this side first and get the numbers. And if the numbers work, to do the other side, but the estimates may be coming higher that there's not enough funds.
Is that how you would do it, Jeremy? One side and then the other, or?
I really want to see what they designed and then make that determination.
Okay. So did you
I
second
mean, you
that
haven't
motion?
seen this yet? You haven't seen this?
Well, it's nothing come take a look at it.
It
It's
was
not,
based off of what he gave us.
Yeah.
We can review it. I'm not gonna sit here and agree on a side without being able to see what.
Might not be a bad idea.
I think they based it on pretty much what you had proposed, though, so.
You got first, there's a second.
I have a motion to accept the design committee's proposal.
I just want to make sure that it's per Jeremy's department head's approval. I don't want to step over top of Jeremy if he hasn't seen it. If Matt wants to add that to his motion.
Well, I think there's obviously concern that Jeremy hadn't seen this.
Well, Jeremy says he hasn't seen it, but what do you need to see? I mean, you've seen it, Jeremy. You've seen the. I mean, we've been looking at this.
What have I sold? Yeah, you're talking
What haven't you?
bump outs and stuff now that we've never even talked about.
Okay, the bump outs don't have the. Come take a look at it. I mean.
Just, if you guys want to do it, do it. You know, we're just figure it out. I'm just not going to sit back there and agree with whatever by now.
We're not asking you
not
to.
even seeing it.
With that, I would make a suggestion that we drop our motion and table this so that Jeremy can review it. That's just my opinion. I don't have a vote. Can't make a motion, but I would make that recommendation. Last thing I want to do is have a department head that's in charge of this not be on the same page with all of us.
I'll retract my motion till the next meeting, and by then, hopefully they can thoroughly review it on all accounts, and at that point,
Okay,
hopefully
so-
we can vote.
Just give me a motion to table it then, if that's what you're saying.
I'll give you a motion to table.
Second. I have a motion and a second to table this until our next meeting. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Moving on. We have a few gentlemen here from our redevelopment commission. Actually, we have three. Max is representing multiple committees tonight. But Ron and Tim are here to kind of update us on the redevelopment commission and all the great things they've been doing, and
I promise you, we're asking for no permission to do anything, all right? All we're doing is talk about some of the great things going on with redevelopment.
thanks.
While Tim is passing that out, excuse me, the redevelopment commission is appointed by both the mayor and the council, and the voting members of the commission is Ron Story's president, Rex Hinsky is the vice president, Larry Ish is the secretary, Craig Russett and Max Miller are the voting members also. Tim Ellerding is the representative from the school board, which is appointed by the school board. He does not have a vote, although his input is very, very helpful to us. Our treasurer is Phyllis Whitwright. Our attorney is Tim Baker. Our scribe is Barb Engel. We meet the first Wednesday of every month. We've been meeting since June of 2011. At that time, we used a very generic mission statement. Since that time, we have since revised that. I'm going to turn that over to Tim, because he had a lot of input into it.
We started talking about what the redevelopment commission really needs to be doing as a group, and so we said we really need to have some guiding principles, and that's really what our mission statement is. And there's 4 items in there that you're going to see. I'm not going to read through these, but 4 items are the catalyst for progress, collaborative leadership, and the reason for collaborative leadership especially is we felt that, we can do more together than we can do as individual units. And that's really sort of the theory behind tax increment financing, or TIF districts, which is our primary financing opportunity right now for us. In quality of place, we had quite a bit of discussion whether it would be quality of life or quality of place. We really are more of an asset-based entity, and so I thought the discussion going to quality of place was a very good discussion we had. And then sustainable economic development, and that is a great segue to what our action plan is. And those are simply the targets that we are focusing on. And those are some of your standard economic development, redevelopment language when you start looking at things like blight, underutilized land, removing barriers for development, creation of jobs, growing the population, things like that. Those are the things that redevelopment is targeting. And that's what we would continue to target. But we also said, and I thought it was a great suggestion by one of the members, is that we've got to measure what our success is. And those are the 4 items you're going to see under the metrics, which is the things that we're going to measure ourselves on are retention of permanent jobs, increase of tax base, improved diversity, the economic base, and then also other similar benefits. That's sort of your catch-all, but that really still focuses on quality of place. So we felt this gives us sort of that guidance, those guiding principles as we start making decisions about what do we do with the revenues that we're allowed to utilize as far as redevelopment. And so this was passed at our last meeting unanimously, and this will be our guide. This is what will guide us from this point on.
Some of the history of the Redevelopment Commission, and I'm not going to read everything that's on here, but the Redevelopment Commission was formed in 2011. Came out of the suggestion from the comprehensive plan that was done back in 2010. In November of 2014, by resolution of the City of Decatur, we were transferred ownership of 2 lots in the industrial park of the Phase 3, Section A, to the Commission. In February 2015, the Redevelopment Commission began the process to restructure the TIF district. The reason behind that was when we originally set up the district, we included just about everything in Decatur. Although we did not receive tax monies from residential assessments, when the assessment goes down below the base caused by residential, it hurts us. So we took a very strong look at redefining the TIF district, taking out most of the residential areas. And then in 2015, in August of 2015, the City Council was gracious enough to authorize us a $5,000 loan to the Commission, which was paid back by June 30th of 2016. The reason that we had to borrow $5,000 from the city is we have not, until that, or up to that time, had not yet received any tax allotments. Finally, in July of 2016, we received our first TIF revenue of $26,054.25. In December of 2016, the Commission funded the riverfront study for the City of Decatur for $10,500. In October of 2017, the Commission pursued the purchase of 128 West Madison Street for use as restroom facilities for the new Madison Street Plaza at a cost of $30,000. In February of 2018, the Commission agreed to fund $26,500 for the completion of the restrooms in the building at 128 West Madison Street. In June of this year, in June of 2018, the Commission received 3 proposals from consultants regarding the feasibility study of US 27/13th Street. Interviews were held in August of 2018, and in November of 2018, the Commission selected Butler, Fairman, and Seufert at a cost of $50,000. In April of 2019, the Commission also provided $60,000 for the streetscaping along 2nd Street so that both sides of the street could be completed.
And as you all know, our revenues are generated from a tax increment finance district. And so what happens with the TIF is we are getting the increment that has been taking place because of increased value in the City of Decatur. The baseline taxes continue to be collected by people such as the city, the library, the schools, fire districts, on and on and on, the county and what have you. Anything over and above that, that is what your TIF actually captures. And that is what is driving the funding for redevelopment. So we aren't taking taxes away from any of the current taxing entities. We're simply capturing the new taxes that are being generated by the exciting things happening here in Decatur. And so with our 2019-2020 season coming up, I like that term, season coming up, we've put together a budget, and that's what we're here tonight to present. And I'm going to go through them just real briefly, but so what we have decided on is there's several things that we want to continue to support. There's some new things that the Redevelopment Commission has decided they want to support, and it's all things to benefit the city of Decatur. First and foremost on the line, you see $25,000 that will be going to North Adams CTE for various programs. Now that could be things such as the discussion that took place earlier tonight, which is workforce development, Northwest, or whatever that building, the engagement center, or whatever term you want to utilize for the new facility. But $25,000 a year, we said we need to make a statement that North Adams needs to be one of the best CTE programs in the region. And so we felt as a group, using TIF revenues, that is a wonderful use for TIF revenues. The law states TIFs have to benefit the region that they are in. Okay, that's the word, they have to benefit. And we thought workforce development is definitely one of those benefits. We then said 13th Street is the gateway to the community. We need to improve the gateway to the community. So as Ron said, we engaged Butler, Fairman, and Seifert. They are in the process of doing a feasibility study for 13th Street. Redevelopment Commission has said, let's continue to support redevelopment of 13th Street. And so they put a line item budget in there. But the heart of the community is still downtown. If the gateway is 13th Street, the heart is still downtown. Redevelopment felt very strongly to continue to support things going on in the downtown area. So you'll see the line item there for 2nd Street. And then there are those capital projects that come up. A great example is Doc Eichenhauer's old office that is now the restrooms, over here. That was something that came up at some point in time when we found out it was available, and we had money at the time available to assist in that effort. Well, we feel that's important, that there are going to be those issues in the city of Decatur that continue to pop up, and so we had to have a line item there. And finally, operations. It's funding, the council, funding, the various legal advertisements and what have you that we have, and so you'll see a line item there. We anticipate we'll be receiving approximately $170,000 this year in TIF revenues, and you'll see, if my math is correct and my TI didn't fail me, that it added up to $170,000. So that is what we passed at our last meeting. This is what's going to be our guiding principles over the next year. We look forward to coming to you again in the year to let you know what we're going to do in the following year. But we are also inviting you on June 5th. It'll be our annual meeting where we are not only obligated, but we're looking forward to inviting all the tax entities that are part of the city of Decatur at our annual meeting that will take place June 5th. That'll be here in this, I believe it's here in this room. We didn't decide this.
Is that our regular time, Ron?
Yeah, regular time.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock here. And we'll be talking once again about, it's a very similar presentation to what you saw tonight, probably a little bit more in depth about the history and why redevelopment is such a necessary entity for economic development. So that is what we're here for tonight. We would entertain if you have any questions for us, please.
Well, I'll just throw out that I have the pleasure of attending the redevelopment meetings, and that the discussion that they have around that table back there is always open and welcome, and if somebody disagrees with one another, they constructively talk it out. It's very impressive, and those members, it's a diverse group of individuals, and I really appreciate every one of them. So.
Yeah. And it's all volunteer.
It's all
I went to
volunteer.
the meeting over at your Riverside Center about what their, what is it called? Seifert? What are they called?
Butler, Fairman,
Butler,
Yeah, you hired a good crew there. They got some really good people involved in that. I thought they did a great presentation for what I'd seen that morning.
I've known that company for 20, 30 years, and they've done nothing but quality work.
Yeah.
And they've done quite a bit for the county and the city. as well as some of the surrounding counties. So yeah, we're really excited so far what we're seeing from them.
It's the same company that Jeremy's been using for our community crossings to help him through that process.
They're good folks. I really liked them.
Thanks,
They-
Greg.
I thought they did a nice job over
We
there.
did a lot of bridge work when I was county attorney.
That's right, when Bob was.
It was a good choice, guys.
Yep.
Good.
That's all I want to say.
Cool. Thanks, Greg.
And the reason for the feasibility study on 13th Street is for safety. How can we improve safety, especially people crossing the street? You get there at Bowman and 13th Street there, that intersection is terrible for the people to go across. And the other day I drove by and there was a person in one of those scooter chairs at the curb trying to reach the button so that they could get across, and we want to see what we can do to help improve those situations. That's not the only intersection. There's 13th and Monroe and 13th and Washington, especially with the Hannah Nutman project going through there now too.
Well, and also if you go south, down there by Richard's Restaurant, that intersection is
That's
horrible.
Bowman Street. Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're right,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is.
But, because there really, literally is no sidewalk once they get on this side.
That is the other part, or another part of it is where people will be able to go from Winchester Street to Winchester Road in safely and off the street.
Thank you, gentlemen, for presenting this, and also I'm impressed with your metrics and your vision, and you've got some real focused direction here. So, job well done, thank you.
Bill?
You know, I just remember when the redevelopment commission was started, I was on the Board of Works, and I know at that time they had no money, and we were trying to figure out how we could fund the redevelopment commission. And I know there are meetings with no money, wasn't much of a meeting, and kind of said, what are we going to do, where we're going to get our money, what we're going to get from the TIF. Well, nothing's coming in, and to hear what they've done now, and to hear the monies that is being generated is outstanding, and I know every one of the guys that's on the redevelopment commission, and I'll have to say, you guys have done an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just interject one thing. You know, we kind of jump-started the process because we were probably 15 years behind the curve in comparison to other communities that established these. So we took a very aggressive posture in terms of trying to capture revenue as quickly as we could. The first few years, just so happened we hit the downturn in the economy and assessed value went down, and we weren't getting anything. But now, as the economy starts to build back up, we're starting to reap the benefits of that, and I think we're going to put ourselves on a little more of an equal footing with regard to some of our other communities. We're going to be able to do things that we haven't been able to do in the past, and I think that the cooperation that I've seen with the Redevelopment Commission in terms of city projects is great, and that's the way it should work. You get into some other communities, and that's not always the case. So my hat's off to the commission members. They've done a great job, and it's been a real pleasure working with them.
Any other comments? If not, thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you guys. Okay, Phyllis, we have some CF1 forms for tax abatement. The time is May 15th is the deadline, so we have no meetings. This is our last meeting before then. I think we have 1, 2, 3 of them. First one is what was for Gilpin is now under the name of J.K. Morris Holdings. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell us about it, Phyllis.
And they have, this is a tax abatement they filed back in 2015. Their SB1 form had current 24 employees. They actually have 26.
Great.
The number that they retained was 24, and the additional was 2. They estimated 4, but they only have 2, which is pretty good still. Their salaries are $832,500, and their salaries for the additional employees was $70,500. So I would say they're
in substantial compliance. This was for construction of new 10,000 square foot unheated but weather-tight storage building that was added to their existing building. And this is for real estate.
I would look for a motion.
And, oh wait,
Go ahead.
that's for the real estate. And then they also do personal property, which was for complete aluminum fence, production line, and computer equipment. And that was filed at the same time. The completion date on that was January of 2017. And the same numbers for salaries and employees are the same. And that's actually filed under Gilpin Products, but yeah, Gilpin's Products.
So with them both being under substantial compliance, should we just do this all in one motion after we get through all three of them? Rather than, let's just do that.
We get one more with that
Because I think they're all...
No, we have
Okay.
one with Hoosier Pattern, and then we have one with Nous Enterprises. I think they're all going to...
Yeah.
Let's go look for one motion on all three.
Hoosier Pattern actually has 3 of them. They filed one in 2013, and their current employees, they estimated would be 28. They actually have 68. The numbers retained were 28, and the number of additional employees, they estimated 3. They actually have 40. Their salaries are $2.1 million, and some odd numbers. The additional salaries for the additional employees is $904,614.
Success story.
Yeah, that's wonderful for him. The other one is for, that was their personal, and they also filed another personal in 2018, and the figures are the same, so, and that was, it's just for different equipment, I believe.
When he got his new 3D printers.
And then the other one is for their real estate. So, and that was filed in 18. That's for Hoosier Pattern.
So 2 of them in 2018, one for real estate, one for personal property, and one from 2013 for personal property.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the last one was from Nous Enterprises, or P&B Trucking, is how everybody probably remembers them. July of 13 is when they filed for the abatement, and was for 12,000 square foot warehouse addition. The current number of employees estimated on the SB1 form was 1.5. They actually have 28. And salaries estimated at $30,000. Now they have actually $164,327. Number of additional employees was 4 to 5, and they didn't add any more. So.
It appears to me that all three of the entities are in compliance on each one of their CF1s, and I would just look for okay for me to move forward and sign those. Motion to...
Second.
Motion from Cam, second from Craig, for me to be able to sign those. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And next thing, more progress on the Madison Street Plaza. The Chamber of Commerce is looking at purchasing a monitor, something like these TV monitors here, only I think it's a little bigger, and it's also for outdoor use. And Craig, if you want to tell us about that, I think you have a...
Yeah, I got a couple of quotes, one from the guys that made the kiosk, Go-To Kiosk down in Monroe. They went out to Innovative Concepts and had them give me the best. I searched it for 3 or 4 days to find out what the best quality. A lot of difference between an indoor TV and an outdoor TV, but to keep the brightness is one of the deals. It's encased. I like to put it up about 10 to 12 feet up so it can't be touched by people that walk by. I like to put it on the south side of the restrooms to the east side of the door. There's about a 4-inch brick gap that's 84 inches wide that sticks out. I'd like to put it up there. I've already touched base with Jeremy Gilbert and several of the fellows on the city department, and I talked to the guy from Community Fiber today, Doug Biebrick, and said it wouldn't be any big problem to get that up. So I'd like to get that permission from council to, and also if you'd like to throw some cash at the thing to get it done. We filed for a grant with the, what do you call it, a collaborative grant with 11 people signing on to it. that would say, so it's the main use would be to scroll our sponsors for the summer concert series or any other events that are held that are on the plaza, and then to post upcoming events and things that are going on throughout the city of Decatur.
Is this something
Downtown.
that, say there's a high school class reunion, and whoever's in charge of that reunion puts together some kind of a PowerPoint of old slides or whatever they could put on there during their reunion, or if there's a wedding on
I'm
the
trying
plaza?
to focus it towards those that donate towards the cause, first of all, but I'm sure we can accommodate that. This is a $10,000 unit. I was hoping to get it put up and use the city to put it up, and then also take it down in the winter months when we're not going to be using it, just so it lasts longer. But we've got some sponsors to it that have put in a couple thousand apiece to get to where we want to be, so we can install it and everything.
Okay, so the
ask would
the
be-
chamber would be the owner.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
With the different groups that have donated towards it, but we'll look at it. We'll take care of it.
You're asking us to hang it on the building, basically?
I'm asking permission, number one, if we can put it on the building.
And number two is looking for some...
If you guys want to
support
put anything towards it,
council.
that's what I'm asking. And if you don't, I'll take care of it myself.
Well, I know you've asked, so are you short?
Yeah.
Okay.
$2,000.
I think it adds the aesthetics, the plaza's growing, I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to have this. So, does that fall into promotion?
I would love to see the council support this with a donation to help, but I would like you to try to make it available to not only those who supported it and the sponsors, but to, I think it's just, if we're going to let the plaza be used for...
If somebody's having a wedding,
Yeah.
I'm going to put happy wedding on the
No,
thing.
they can make their own thing. And
Whatever.
all they got to do is give you something to plug into the computer.
That would be fine.
Boom, it goes, yeah.
But, I mean, I really wasn't planning on running 24 hours. I was hoping to get a timer on it to where it shuts off at, say, 10 o'clock at night and then comes back on when we want it to, instead of, you know what I mean? I don't want it to be a distraction to the downtown area
Correct.
either.
Have all your funds come in, you think, that you've asked for?
I got $4,000 from Adams County Community Foundation, and then I've talked to 4 other committees.
Because I sat in another meeting this week for
What's that?
Service Club was going to give some money towards it. It was just approved this week, so I'm in favor of supporting it if we
Okay.
need to, but I might want to see if those funds come in, might take care of it. May not be there, but, so I guess I would make a motion to approve it and approve council to make up the difference of that $2,000 if needed. But other funds might take care of it before we have to use our funds.
I'll second that motion.
You got clarity on that, everyone?
I have to recuse myself from
Yeah.
the vote because it's...
Barb, do you understand what
asking for?
he's saying that up to $2,000, or if others come forward, that could be less, but no more than 2,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what he's short.
Yep. I have a motion, Tyler seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
And, excuse me, before I take the notes, where are we paying this from?
Promotional.
Council promotional?
Yeah.
Okay. Opposed? Craig recused himself, make a note of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Event forms, I have an event form, we got event form plethora tonight, I believe, again, here. We have, first, event form for Decatur. I guess Melissa's handing that to us as we go. They have a diagram. Utilizing the plaza and Madison Street alongside the courthouse between 2nd and 3rd. Looks like on Madison Street between 2nd and 3rd, that's where they're going to have all their barbecuers. Does that sound right?
Correct.
That's different than what I last was told, because I thought it was going to be on 1st, so you've changed it.
We changed it.
Okay. And then on the plaza itself is where all the beer tent, band, things like that would take place. And it looks like in front of the courthouse,
Is where we'd like to set the barbecue food vendors. and we would like to request to close 2nd Street between Monroe and Court Street, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and leaving the entrance onto Court Street open.
Say that one more time. You want to close?
We'd like to close from Court Street to Monroe Street, starting at 2 o'clock on Saturday, June 22nd.
Okay, but coming from the south,
But coming
leaving...
from the south, the entrance onto Court Street off of 2nd would remain open.
Okay.
So you're going to stretch out into 2nd Street,
Correct.
hence the need to close.
Yes. We want to close it as late as possible to be sensitive to our downtown neighbors.
Thank you.
Is the street closings in here somewhere?
Yes, they should
Are you
be.
closing First Street also in this, or just?
First Street will remain open. We will not be on First Street.
I'm not saying where the street closings are.
Okay.
Requested street closures. See attached sheet.
Did I attach it?
You got the schedule.
Is it on that? It's on that sheet. It would indicate the time of when things will be closed.
Okay.
And where.
At 2 p.m. close 2nd Street between Court Street and Monroe.
Correct.
Okay. And that's the only street that has to be closed.
Well, we would
We're
close,
closed Madison here between 2nd and 3rd.
At,
We like to
okay,
close
at
down
5 p.m. on
Friday
Friday.
at 5 p.m. because on Saturday at 5 a.m. is when the cookers will start to arrive. We want
Gotcha.
to make sure the street is clear
Okay.
for those folks to pull in.
You have all the department heads that need to sign off on this signed off on it. Looks like we're good to go for another good Decatur homebrew and barbecue fest to me. Any comments from council? If not,
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
motion and a second to approve the Decatur homebrew and barbecue fest event. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
The next one is from the American Legion for their annual Memorial Day parade and service. Starting at the American Legion Post 43 at 101 Madison Street. They would march north on 1st Street, turning right on Monroe Street, crossing the river, turning left through the community center parking lot, and then turning left onto Jackson Street. The ceremony at the bridge, then continue west on Jackson Street, turning left on 2nd Street, parading to Court Street and over to the monument. I believe that's the exact same route they've done every year. And they have attached a signed copy from the police, street, and fire. And this would tell what streets need closed where with the help of the police department. Lenny, you're fine with it, right? Thank you, Lenny. I said, Lenny, you're fine with it, right? Lenny's fine with it. So I'd look for a motion to approve this.
To approve the event.
Second. Thank you. A motion and a second to approve the American Legion's Memorial Day Parade and service. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And then I have another event form here from Monster Pizza. And this is I believe, a fundraiser, right, Max?
Yes.
It's a fundraiser for Hannah Nutman, and he is having a famous Monster Pizza wiffle ball tournament, along with some other activities that will be happening that day. I think he's going to be playing Field of Dreams in the no, excuse me, thank you, Sandlot.
Cool.
Yeah, in the pizza place. He is asking to close North 2nd Street between Monroe and Jackson. What's that say? Possibly just to the alley. Okay. For a wiffle ball tournament. And that tournament would take a set-up time at 9 a.m., starting the event at 10 a.m., and have it completed by 5 p.m. So I assume you would, once we approve this, you'd promote it, start getting entries for...
I started promoting.
Yeah.
What's the date?
The date of this is May 18th. That's a Saturday.
Awesome.
That's coming up pretty quick here. And he's got attached insurance, liability, etc., and everyone has signed off on it as well. So with that, I would look
I'll
for...
make a motion to approve the event.
Second. Thank you. Another good event. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, sir.
I like trees. I'm sorry.
Is that it?
That's it.
At the Board of Works meeting tonight, we talked about the demolition of homes on Schermeyer Street, and we voted as a Board of Works, there will be 2 homes taken down on Schermeyer Street, and I guess I'm just mentioning this to council as a matter of record. Does council need to actually vote on this, Tim? No. So as a matter of record, I think it was 704 and 910, or 710 and 904. 710 and 904 Schermeyer Street. We've gone through all the process of notifying owners, condemnation. Everything's good to go. The next process was for the Board of Works to vote to demolish, and that's where we're at. So I don't need a motion. I'm just making this a matter of record to the council.
The city will demo those, correct?
This is,
And then we'll just take it out of your unsafe building fund?
unsafe building fund. Thank you. Also, at the Board of Works meeting, there was a discussion about hiring of an employee to work in our future creative engagement center. Is that where, well, we don't know what it's going to be called, but it's down here at the Artist Lofts on the first floor. And Cam, I'm going to let you kind of talk a little bit more about that.
So, initial development design of the loft space was that the city's going to lease out the bottom space for a public area for creative engagement, for lack of a better term, but to be able to host art shows, do classes for individuals to come in and take advantage of it. But kind of consensus is that there needs to be somebody to help coordinate all of these efforts. In conversations with Kevin Biggs and they're part of their tax credit application, thank you, is that the residents would all participate in an entrepreneurial course, and that obviously part of our participation in the original discussion was that this would happen in that facility, that space. So there's some things that are exciting that have happened, and conversations that Melissa's had with some folks out of Fort Wayne about opportunities to actually have some courses in the space, so that some of that to be determined. Some pretty cool, actually a county individual that is really excited about helping out with the concept of co-working. They utilize co-working, and they go to Atrium all the time, and they're volunteering, and they actually do small business coaching. That's their job. So there's some neat opportunities. But all that said, that we still need a single point of contact person, and collectively at the meeting we had with the Arts Commission, they all said, yes, we need somebody, and we need them now. So one of those individuals actually approached Melissa and had a lot of ideas, and we said this might be the right person to do this. And that's Brielle Adams. She's a student at St. Francis, finishing her second year. She's in ceramics, I believe. She's a pretty impressive resume at this time. But anyway, the idea would be to hire this young lady on a part-time basis.
You got a line, Bob.
Jeez.
Isn't this meeting
Long
long enough?
night, and things are starting to really stack.
To help us out, really on a part-time basis to get us going. The idea is 5 hours a week, minimum expectation of work, maximum 50 hours a month. You do that at $12 an hour. That puts us at $600 a month commitment maximum. As a part-time employee, they would be on the, we would be responsible for payroll taxes. That's about $45 a month. So all in through the end of the year, we're looking at about $4,500. I forgot to mention this earlier. So some basic things. I understand there's a cost to having an email address as well, being a city employee.
That's a lot of extra that you're not thinking of.
Okay, well.
So I just would think that to make it more feasible, that we could just donate, like we do, Council on Aging, donate so much money to the Arts Commission, and they can handle that.
There is no Arts Commission at this point.
Okay. Well, then, whoever's going to handle this girl, wouldn't you just donate that money towards Big's project?
It's not a big space. It's the city of Decatur space that we're responsible for.
Okay.
And so that we, as far as coordinating who's in there, what's going on in there, the activities, the shows, that's a City of Decatur space.
It's almost like establishing another department, isn't it? Kinda. I mean, it's a...
I thought you said she was just temporary, though.
Well, if we get it through, I mean, if we get the Arts Commission up and going, then they could take that over.
This is definitely showing the importance of having an arts commission.
Okay, so if you hire a new employee, just remember she's got to go through the drug screening before you can hire. She'll have to go through the E-Verify. We'll have to do the paperwork for that. And then the other thing is, we'll have to amend the salary ordinance. You'll have to have a job description. She'll have to fill out an application. So we can't do this. I know you were thinking to hire June 1st, but there's steps we got to go through before you hire someone.
Okay.
Well, after Kim's describing this, I say that the ball needs to start rolling on filling out the steps, because in a couple of weeks or whatever works out, when we get the estimate for that place and it comes back and it's going to be, we hope, under the price of what they said earlier, but good luck with that. But
Yeah.
we have to have somebody in place to take care of this facility, because, and maybe the direction of this person needs to, I don't know if it's possible, but to make this building sustain itself or generate a little income. I know it might be hard at first when there is no building, but in an ideal world, it would be nice if that thing could somewhat support itself, so we don't have another park that, in theory, would have another park that we're taking care of that's not generating income.
And that was what the Arts Commission would be about too, is so that it would be self-sustaining and that it's not going to be dependent upon city finances for their day-to-day functions and so forth. Doesn't mean that the city we would still keep a commitment for that, whatever that might look like, but
If you look at other, and I go back to Jasper, and they've had one for a long time. So yes, the city does obviously support their Arts Commission, but that commission is responsible for going out and getting much greater sustainable funding to continue to do programming. Right now, we're talking about just funding to get us up and running, to get us going in that direction and to secure some of these partnerships with Art Link and Fort Wayne, as an example for the entrepreneurial piece.
I'd like to, if not just some clarity, I'd like to make a motion that we go forward with what you proposed for the pay and those things, and try to keep attracting this applicant towards this position until we come up with what we have to do, either to make them a city employee or come up with a board to, but I would like to keep that ball moving, because we need to get this going, and that's reasonable for us to get somebody to take that spot.
If they're interested in have a drive for that, I mean, that's the best thing we can get for
Correct.
the money. So what I'd say...
Is it okay to have a motion that we proceed with these guidelines that you forecasted? Is that what you're looking for? Are we looking for a motion to get the pay part of it so that we can continue down the path, or what are we looking for? Just talk about it?
I want to hire this person, and I was kind of in the middle here as to whether we hired them. Phyllis was kind of encouraging me to hire her as a contract employee, kind of like we do the janitor or some of the other people, or, you know, Cam's suggestion of hiring her as an employee, which, to do that, there are some things some steps we would have to go through, including a salary ordinance amendment, but I don't think any of that can't be done.
Can we do as a contract to start out for a 3 to 4 month period, or to get us to the end of the year?
Another thing Cam hasn't touched on was
what?
Supplies that this person will need. Cam?
I mean, she'll need a computer. You know, is she allowed to use her own computer? Would that preferable? I don't know. I think that who's ever responsible, we don't have a phone line down there at that space right now, but we either need a phone line down there that can be forwarded to her, or we need to provide her a phone so that once this is open and people want to call the place, we got somebody that can answer, even whether she's there or not. They can leave a message for her.
It's our building, we got to put it in there. You can't not put it in there. I mean,
A landline?
Yeah, when we decided that building was going to be we were gonna take the space, so we decided that we gotta take the space, and we have to put a landline in there, and we have to hire someone to take care of it. You can't not.
And I think if we have a landline in there that can either, number one, be set when it's closed to forward to her phone, or she can call into that number and check messages on a as-needed basis. But whether or not we need to provide her with a cell phone itself, I don't know. You know, someone who's only working that many hours per week, per month, we don't have any other employees in the city that we're providing a cell phone for like that. But again,
I don't think that's
what she's
really
doing is
correct.
different than what other part-time employees would be doing.
And those are things that we need to figure out. Yes,
Right.
You're right.
Yep. So,
But you're saying if we contract her out as a subcontractor, there is no salary ordinance, we just have to figure out where it came from this year?
That's where I'd start.
So we could subcontract her out for the same rate that you were proposing,
You know,
with no difference.
and then by
I like the
January,
idea.
you know, to subcontract it out.
And if it
To start
works
out.
in the first,
It's a 5 hours to 40 hours a month.
If you contract her out for the balance of this year, you can budget in your 2020 budget a line item that would address this. And then if you want to hire her as a part-time employee, you have the option of doing that. It gives you time to create a benchmark, and you can factor in whatever additional costs there would be. But in the meantime, you're going to have to provide her with the materials, the supplies, in order for her to do the job.
yeah, if maybe we give her a stipend for phone.
I don't have a phone.
Well,
I mean,
why
wouldn't you
everybody
just
that I
put a-
know that's,
Yeah, just
I
put
work
a
more hours than
line
that.
Yeah, you sure do.
I use my own phone.
Right, but that's not something you can do right now.
No, but I don't know why cell phone came up here.
I don't think it's necessary.
No, she needs to have a line that goes
Right.
directly to her. Whether that gets forwarded to her cell phone or what, that's fine, but
That's fine.
we shouldn't be...
Tyler says we need a phone line in the building.
Right.
do we think we need it in there? I mean, I don't think cell phones necessarily, but a line to reach the building.
Yeah.
And that's just the cost of the
Just
building.
to do business in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what was budgeted for the downstairs in this building.
Well, for the build-out is one thing, but as far as 200,000 for the build-out,